Hello, I'm Peta Taylor. This video demonstrates how to blend a few basic coloured oil pastels to create a wide range of skin tones. And I'll be working from Ruskin Spear's 1974 portrait of Harold Wilson. When we're studying the colours in skin, flesh tones, it's important to choose a portrait which has plenty of variety. And I've chosen Harold Wilson's portrait from 1974 by Ruskin Spear. Now you could make a viewfinder to isolate, and you could look through that in a gallery to help you, or you could zoom in online, or just make something like this to isolate the area on a piece of card. I have luckily got a book which has enlarged it, which has partly influenced me in my choice. I would say then, to match the format of that, I would sketch out a square or rectangle roughly the same size but certainly the same dimensions if it's slightly taller than wider, and sketch out as a guide very quickly just some indication of where the main features are. So I've put in the eye and a few of the main marks that I can see to get me going. Right, I'm going to show you about oil pastel. Oil pastels, many people mistake them for something, or oil crayons people call them. They're mistaken for something that can be blended with your finger. They really can't, it just ends up with a nasty mess. But what you can do, and by the way this area around the edge is great for testing things out, what you can do is put a darker colour down first, but quite lightly, using a light pressure, and then you can blend it by pushing it around with a lighter colour on top, and you'll get 2 if not 3 tones there. And you can do this with several layers. You could do it with 3, 4, even 5 or 6 layers. But always put the darker ones underneath. This is how we blend oil pastel. So I'm going to try and do this with larger patches of colour underneath first. So let's start with some patches for a ground, using the same sort of tone that I've just created actually. It would be very easy with this gentleman's face, with this rather sort of pallid, yellowy, older coloured flesh, to use the straightforward peach colour, but it's probably not exactly that colour. So we work at it, working at perhaps lightening it. I think there's probably some yellow in here as well. You're going to use up an awful lot of white oil pastel because often that's used on top as a final sort of blend. So there we are, that's the sort of thing we're looking at. And I'm also using contouring lines, not necessarily the same ones that Ruskin Spear has, but I'm using contour lines to give an indication of the direction of the skin. Okay, well I'm going to do a bit of that for a while. I think there's a bit of orange in there, and we'll build up the larger areas of fleshy tones behind any detail. Now I'm beginning to see some extraordinary colours here. In amongst that dark, dark brown, I can certainly see black and also some bottle greens. Just using the edge of the paper to clean up an oil pastel as well. Sometimes they get really quite grubby. Okay, once we've got some base colour on, you can start putting these finer lines, although they're lovely, sketchy, thick lines, you can start putting those on top. You're working in layers. I like how a little bit of the blue from the iris of the eye has escaped into the eyelid and got caught up in the peach colour. I'm twisting the oil pastel here to give a sense of that dripping paint that Ruskin Spear has used. Anyway, that's the sort of thing, you get the idea.